When my wife drained our son's college fund and ran off with her trainer, I was devastated. But my 12-year-old son just smiled coldly and said, "Don't worry, Dad. I've been tracking Mom's digital footprint for weeks." That's when I realized the woman who betrayed us had no idea what she'd unleashed. My son wasn't just smart. He was dangerous. And so was I. My name is Michael Foster. I'm 43 years old, a senior software developer at Axiom Technologies in Portland, and a single dad to the smartest 12-year-old you'll ever meet. But I wasn't always single. Until 8 months ago, I had what I thought was a solid marriage to Jessica, my college sweetheart. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my world collapsed. I remember because I had just finished debugging a particularly nasty piece of code that had been giving me headaches for days. I was feeling pretty good about myself, riding that small high programmers get when they finally squash an elusive bug. I decided to check our investments while I was taking a break. Tyler's college fund had been growing nicely over the years, a 529 plan that Jessica and I had religiously contributed to since he was born. We were determined that our son would graduate debt-free. The notification hit me like a punch to the gut. Your account balance is below the minimum threshold. That couldn't be right. Just last month, we had over $87,000 in there. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, navigating to the transaction history. Empty. The entire account had been drained 3 days ago. "Jessica," I called out, my voice echoing through our 2-story suburban home. No answer. I tried her cell. Straight to voicemail. As the silence of the house pressed in on me, my programmer's mind started connecting the dots. Jessica's recent yoga retreats, the new wardrobe, the password changes on her personal accounts that she'd brushed off as security updates. The front door opened, and Tyler walked in, backpack slung over one shoulder, his dark hair falling across his forehead. He had Jessica's eyes, but my analytical mind. "Hey, Dad," he said, dropping his bag on the floor. "Where's Mom?" The simplicity of his question broke something inside me. I didn't know. For the first time in our marriage, I truly had no idea where my wife was. "She's out," I managed to say. Tyler studied my face with an intensity that sometimes unnerved me. At 12, he often seemed to understand more than he should. "The college fund is gone, isn't it?" he asked quietly. I stared at him, dumbfounded. "How did you?" "I overheard Mom on the phone last week," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "She was talking to someone named Craig about finally having enough to start over." Craig, Jessica's new personal trainer. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. "Don't worry, Dad," Tyler said, his young face hardening with a determination that shouldn't belong to a 12-year-old. "I've been working on something. I'll fix this." I had no idea then what he meant. No idea what my son was capable of. The next few days were a blur. Jessica wouldn't answer my calls or texts. Her parents claimed ignorance, though I could hear the hesitation in their voices. I filed a police report, but since Jessica was an authorized user on the account, technically no crime had been committed. The money was gone, and with it, my son's future. Tyler, though, remained strangely composed. While I spiraled between rage and despair, he maintained an eerie calm that I initially mistook for shock. Kids process trauma differently, right? "She's in Tampa," Tyler announced on Thursday morning while pouring himself a bowl of cereal, as casually as if commenting on the weather. I looked up from my untouched coffee. "What? How do you know that?" He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Digital footprints, Dad. Mom's not exactly careful with her passwords." A chill ran down my spine. "Tyler, did you hack into your mother's accounts?" "That's illegal even for—" "Not hacking if you know the password," he interrupted, spooning cereal into his mouth. "Anyway, she and Craig checked into the Bayshore Resort yesterday. Used your joint credit card." He slid his tablet across the table. There it was, a hotel confirmation email in Jessica's inbox, and a $429 charge on our credit card statement for a place called Bayshore Resort. "Jesus," I whispered, staring at my 12-year-old son with new eyes. "What else do you know?" A small, unsettling smile crossed his face. "Craig Daniels, 34, personal trainer. 3 complaints of financial misconduct at his previous gym in Ohio. 2 ex-wives, both claiming he cleaned out their accounts before disappearing." He took another bite of cereal. "Mom's not his first mark, Dad. She's just the latest." My programmer's mind raced to catch up. "How did you find all this?" Public records are easy if you know where to look. He shrugged again. I've been teaching myself coding since I was 8, remember? While you thought I was building Minecraft mods, I was learning other things too. The casual way he delivered this information stunned me. Who was this kid? Had he always been this calculating, this methodical, and I'd somehow missed it? Tyler, I said carefully, I appreciate you gathering this information, but we need to let the authorities handle this. He looked at me then, really looked at me, with eyes far too knowing for his age. The authorities? Like the police who said they can't help, or the bank that won't reverse the transfer. He closed his laptop with a definitive click. They took my future, Dad, so I'm taking it back. That afternoon, I found him in the garage, hunched over a workbench cluttered with circuit boards and what looked suspiciously like a signal booster. What are you working on? I asked, dreading the answer. Just a project, he said without looking up. Don't worry about it. But I was worried. Very worried. Not just about what Jessica had done to us, but about what Tyler might be planning to do to her. 3 days after Jessica disappeared with the college fund, I finally pulled myself together. Wallowing in self-pity, wasn't going to recover the money or fix our lives. I had a son who needed me, and it was time I started acting like the father he deserved. I called my company and took a week of emergency leave. Then I sat down at my workstation and did what I do best. I started coding. If Jessica thought she could just walk away from her responsibilities, she had severely underestimated the man she married. What are you working on? Tyler asked, peering over my shoulder at the multiple screens displaying database queries and tracking algorithms. Fighting back. I replied without looking away from the monitor. I'm going to find every digital footprint your mother and Craig have left. Tyler watched me work for a moment, then pulled up a chair beside me. Your approach is inefficient, he said matter-of-factly. Here, let me show you something. Before I could protest, he took over the keyboard and began typing with surprising speed. Lines of code flowed across the screen, more elegant and streamlined than my brute force approach. How did you learn to do this? I asked, genuinely impressed. Tyler shrugged. I watch you work all the time, Dad. Plus, I've been taking some online courses. Together, we built a tracking system that would make the NSA proud. By midnight, we had mapped Jessica and Craig's movements across Florida, following credit card transactions, social media check-ins, and hotel bookings. She took our son's college money and fled with her lover, I said, staring at the blinking that represented their current location. She has no idea what's coming. Tyler nodded solemnly. What my 12-year-old brain is planning will leave her terrified, he said with a coldness that should have alarmed me more than it did. At that moment, as if she sensed we were closing in, my phone rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. Should I answer it? I asked Tyler. His eyes narrowed. Put on speaker. Let's hear what she has to say for herself. I hit the speaker button. Jessica. Michael. Her voice trembled slightly. I need to talk to you. Now you need to talk? After stealing our son's future. My voice remained deadly calm. Years of dealing with system crashes had taught me to keep my cool under pressure. It's not what you think, she began, but I cut her off. It's exactly what I think. You emptied Tyler's college fund and ran off with your boy toy Craig. A man, by the way, who has quite the history of scamming women, just like you. The silence on her end was satisfying. How did you? I'm a software developer with 20 years of experience. Jessica, did you really think I couldn't track you down? That I wouldn't discover everything about the man you betrayed us for? Michael, please. Her voice cracked. Craig is gone. He took the money and disappeared. I have nothing now. Tyler's eyes met mine, a silent communication passing between us. Phase 1 of our plan had worked better than expected. What do you mean Craig is gone? I demanded, though I already knew the answer. It had been part of our plan all along. Jessica's sobs filtered through the speaker. He cleared out our hotel room while I was at the spa. Took my purse, my phone. I'm using the hotel's phone right now. He even took my suitcase, Michael. I have nothing left. Tyler's face remained impassive, but I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. His fingers moved silently across his tablet, tracking the digital transfers we'd initiated just hours before. That's unfortunate, I replied, matching my son's cold demeanor. Though I can't say I'm surprised. Craig Daniels has done this to at least 2 other women. Please, Jessica begged, her voice cracking. I know I made a horrible mistake. I need help getting home. Home, I echoed. You don't have a home here anymore, Jessica. You destroyed that when you stole from our son. I'm still Tyler's mother, she protested weakly. At this, Tyler finally spoke up. No, you stopped being my mother when you decided your boyfriend was more important than my future. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Tyler, is that you, baby? Don't call me that, he said evenly. I'm not your baby anymore. Tyler, please, she sobbed. I made a terrible mistake. I'll make it up to you, I promise. How? He asked simply. The money's gone. My college fund is empty. I'll get back somehow. I'll work 2 jobs if I have to. That won't be necessary, I interrupted. Tyler and I have already taken care of it. What do you mean? Jessica's voice was suddenly wary. I looked at Tyler, who nodded his approval. While Craig was busy clearing out your hotel room, we were busy clearing out the offshore account where he'd stashed the money. What? She gasped. Every penny of Tyler's college fund has been recovered, I continued, unable to keep the pride from my voice. Plus interest, you could say. It turns out Craig had quite the collection of funds from his previous adventures. How did you? Dad and I make a good team, Tyler cut in. He taught me everything I know about coding. After all, this wasn't entirely true. Tyler had clearly taught himself far more than I realized. But the solidarity between us in that moment was worth the small deception. The authorities have been notified about Craig's activities, I added. They're particularly interested in his pattern of defrauding women across state lines. That's a federal offense, Jessica. Michael, please, she whispered. What about me? I looked at Tyler, letting him make the call. You should know, he said calmly, that we've provided them with all the evidence of your participation too. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for so long, I thought Jessica had hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed from pleading to something darker. You think you're so smart, don't you? She hissed. You, and that freaky kid of yours. Tyler flinched, almost imperceptibly. I placed a protective hand on his shoulder. Be very careful about what you say next, Jessica, I warned, my voice dangerously low. Or what? She challenged. You've already taken everything from me. What else can you do? We didn't take anything from you, I replied evenly. We recovered what you stole. There's a difference. Craig has friends, she spat. Dangerous friends. When he finds out what you've done, is that a threat? I cut her off, anger rising in my chest. I'd expected tears, maybe pleas for reconciliation, but not this. Take it however you want, she retorted. Just watch your backs. The line went dead. Tyler and I looked at each other, the same thought reflected in our eyes. This wasn't over. Can she actually do anything? Tyler asked, his voice small for the first time since this ordeal began. I straightened my shoulders, refusing to show any weakness. No, she can't. Neither can Craig. They're just trying to scare us. But that night, I double-checked all the locks and set up motion sensor lights around the house. I also reached out to a buddy from college who now worked in cybersecurity for the FBI. Mark had always owed me a favor after I helped him pass advanced programming logic. I need some unofficial advice, I told him, explaining the situation without going into how exactly Tyler and I had recovered the money. Mark whistled low. That's heavy, Mike. This Craig Daniels sounds like a real piece of work. I heard keyboard clicks in the background. Let me run him through our system, off the record. 20 minutes later, Mark called back. You stepped in at this time, buddy. Craig Daniels is connected to some not-so-nice people in Miami. Nothing concrete enough for us to move on, but enough smoke to suggest fire. Ice formed in my gut. What should I do? Document everything, Mark advised, and maybe consider taking a little vacation while we expedite the investigation. After hanging up, I found Tyler in the garage, hunched over what looked like a small circuit board. What are you working on? I asked. He didn't look up. Security system. I'm patching into the neighborhood cameras to create a perimeter alert. For a moment, I just watched my 12-year-old son working with the focus and precision of a seasoned engineer. Pride and fear battled within me. Tyler, I said gently, we need to talk about next steps. Things might get dicey. He finally looked up, his eyes steady. I'm not scared, Dad. Craig's just a bully with a keyboard. We're better. Maybe so, I conceded, but I think we should be prepared for anything. Pack a bag, just essentials. We might need to move quickly. Instead of arguing, Tyler simply nodded and returned to his work, his young hands steady as they manipulated delicate electronics. In that moment, I realized my son wasn't just smart. He was brave in a way I'd never had to be at his age. The threatening call from Jessica changed everything. This wasn't just about recovering money anymore. It was about protecting ourselves. I spent the night creating secured backups of all our evidence and setting up dead man switches that would release everything to the authorities if anything happened to us. Tyler worked alongside me, his young face set in grim determination as he created redundant security systems for our home network. The garage had transformed into a command center of sorts, with monitors showing camera feeds from around our property. "There's movement at the south corner," Tyler said suddenly, pointing to one of the screens. I squinted at the grainy night vision image. A figure in dark clothing was skulking around our back fence. "Could be anyone," I said, though we both knew better. "I'll activate the exterior lights," Tyler said, his fingers flying across his tablet. The yard suddenly flooded with light, and the figure bolted, disappearing into the neighbor's shrubbery. We both released a breath I hadn't realized we were holding. "We can't stay here," I decided. "It's not safe." Tyler nodded in agreement. "Where will we go?" "I have a buddy who owns a cabin up in the Cascades. No internet, no cell service. We'll be completely off-grid." We packed quickly and quietly, taking only essentials and, of course, our evidence. As we loaded the car, I noticed a sedan with tinted windows parked 2 houses down. "Don't look now," I murmured to Tyler, "but I think we have company." To his credit, Tyler didn't turn his head. He simply nodded and continued loading his backpack into the trunk. "I anticipated this," he said calmly. "That's why I installed the remote relay on Mrs. Peterson's Wi-Fi. They'll think we're still active online, even after we're gone." I stared at my son, once again amazed by his foresight. "When did you do that?" "Yesterday, when I helped her set up her new printer." He smiled innocently. "She makes really good cookies." We slipped out through the basement that connected to the neighbor's yard, then circled around to where I'd parked my secondary vehicle, an old truck registered under my LLC that Jessica didn't know about. Within 20 minutes, we were on the highway heading east, away from Portland and toward the mountains. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Tyler asked, scanning the rearview mirror. "Not if your relay works like it should," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Besides, I took a few precautions of my own. I disabled the GPS on both our phones and switched to burner phones I'd purchased months ago for a camping trip we never took. Old habits from my early hacking days were proving useful now. As the city lights faded behind us, Tyler grew quiet, staring out at the darkness. "We're going to be okay," I told him, reaching over to squeeze his shoulder. "We're smarter than they are." He turned to me, his expression oddly adult in the dim dashboard light. "I know. I'm not worried about that. I'm just thinking about Mom." "What about her?" "I always thought she loved us," he said simply. I guess I was wrong. The cabin sat nestled between towering pines, 3 miles from the nearest neighbor and 20 from the closest town. It was exactly what we needed: isolated, defensible, and completely off the grid. My college buddy Dave had built it himself, a passion project after selling his tech startup. He'd been more than happy to let us use it. No questions asked beyond. "You in trouble, Mike?" "Just need some space," I told him. Not a complete lie. As Tyler explored the cabin's interior, I unloaded our equipment. Besides clothes and necessities, we'd brought a small arsenal of tech: laptops with satellite internet capability, portable solar chargers, and the custom security devices Tyler had built in our garage. "This place is perfect, Dad," Tyler announced, emerging from his inspection. "The sight lines are clear in all directions. No one could approach without being seen." I nodded, sometimes forgetting that my son was only 12, not a military tactician. Dave was a bit of a survivalist, even back in college. Said the Y2K panic changed his perspective. While I secured the perimeter, Tyler set up our monitoring systems. By nightfall, we had transformed the rustic cabin into a high-tech command center. Motion sensors dotted the property, feeding data to our laptops. Tyler had even rigged old smartphones as makeshift security cameras, their feeds displaying on a monitor. "We should be safe here," I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Now we can focus on our next move." Tyler nodded, his young face grimly determined. "Craig will realize the money's gone soon, if he hasn't already. He'll be desperate. Desperate people make mistakes," I pointed out. "We'll be ready when he does." We didn't have to wait long. Just after midnight, Tyler's monitoring system pinged. Someone had accessed Jessica's email account. "They're looking for us," Tyler whispered, his face illuminated by the laptop's blue glow. I leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. The email was from Jessica to her mother, staying with Michael and Tyler at Dave's cabin in the mountains. "Everything's fine." My blood ran cold. "How did she know about the cabin?" "She didn't," Tyler said grimly. "But she knew you were friends with Dave in college. She's fishing for information. And if her mother responds with the location, then Craig's friends will know where to find us," Tyler finished. I grabbed my phone. "I need to warn Dave. If these people go to his house looking for information." "Already handled," Tyler interrupted, showing me his tablet. "I sent Dave an encrypted message as soon as I saw the email. He's going to feed them false information if anyone contacts him." I stared at my son, a mix of pride and concern washing over me. When had he become so tactical? "We can use this," Tyler continued, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "If Jessica thinks we're communicating with people, we can control what information gets out. Create a false trail." I nodded, catching on. "Exactly. We'll make them think we're heading to Seattle, then down to California." As we worked through the night, setting digital breadcrumbs for our pursuers to follow, I couldn't help but marvel at the transformation in my son. The betrayal had forced him to grow up overnight, revealing a strength and resourcefulness I'd always hoped he had but never wanted him to need. 3 days in the cabin had transformed us. Tyler had never been an outdoor kid. He preferred circuitry to camping. But now he moved through the surrounding forest with surprising stealth, setting up additional sensors in a wider perimeter. I spent hours reinforcing entry points and establishing escape routes, skills I'd picked up from survivalist forums years ago, but never thought I'd use. Someone triggered the 4th marker, Tyler announced, bursting into the cabin where I was sorting our supplies. 2 miles south, headed this way. My heart raced. "How many?" "Just one, according to the heat signature. Moving fast but cautious." I nodded, immediately shifting to the defensive plan we'd rehearsed. "Okay, initiate Protocol B. Shut down all non-essential systems and activate the decoys." Tyler worked quickly, his small hands confident on the equipment. Within minutes, he deployed electronic decoys around the property, small devices that mimicked heat signatures and would confuse anyone using thermal imaging. I retrieved the rifle Dave kept locked in a cabinet, something I'd never imagined using, but our situation had long since left normal behind. I wasn't a hunter, but I knew enough about firearms to be safe. The weight of it felt foreign in my hands. "Perimeter secure," Tyler reported. "All cameras active." We gathered around the monitors, watching as a figure in dark clothing moved through the trees. The person was skilled, avoiding obvious paths, checking constantly for signs of surveillance. "It's not Craig," Tyler said, squinting at the grainy image. "Build is wrong." As the figure drew closer, I felt a chill of recognition. "It's Jessica." Tyler's face hardened. "What is she doing here?" "I don't know," I replied grimly, "but I doubt she came alone." I grabbed a handheld radio. "Cover the back exit. If anything happens, follow the evacuation plan. Head straight to Checkpoint Alpha." "What are you going to do?" Tyler asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "I'm going to have a chat with your mother." With the rifle slung across my back, I slipped out the side door and circled around, using the terrain to mask my approach. Years of hiking these mountains with Dave had taught me how to move quietly through undergrowth. I caught Jessica just as she reached the clearing before the cabin. Moving swiftly, I stepped out behind her. "Looking for someone?" She whirled around, her face paling when she saw me, and the rifle. "Michael," she gasped. "Thank God I found you first." "First." I kept my voice level, fingers resting near the trigger guard. "Who else is looking?" "Craig sent men," she said breathlessly. "They forced me to tell them about Dave's cabin. They're coming, Michael. We need to get Tyler and leave now." I studied her face, searching for deception. "Why would you warn us?" "Last I heard, you were threatening me." Tears welled in her eyes. I was angry and scared. "But they're going to kill you, Michael. Both of you." I couldn't let that happen to my son. "Your son," I echoed coldly. "You forfeited that title when you stole his future." "I know," she whispered. "I know what I did was unforgivable. But please, Michael, there's no time. There may be 30 minutes behind me." I raised the radio to my lips. "Tyler, status?" His voice crackled back immediately. Multiple heat signatures approaching from the north. At least 3 individuals, armed. Jessica's eyes widened. How does he? My son is a lot more capable than you ever gave him credit for, I said, grabbing her arm. Inside. Now, we're going to find out if your warning is genuine or just another betrayal. I marched Jessica into the cabin, my hand firmly gripping her arm. Tyler's eyes widened momentarily before his expression hardened into something no 12-year-old should know how to wear. Mom, he acknowledged flatly, turning back to the monitors. 3 armed men approaching from the north ridge. ETA 8 minutes. Jessica stared at the setup in disbelief. How did you? Sit down and be quiet, I ordered, checking the rifle's magazine. Tyler, evacuation protocol. Now, while Tyler gathered our essential equipment, I secured Jessica to a chair. Trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. Michael, please, she pleaded. I'm trying to help you. Like you helped our son by stealing his college fund. I countered, connecting a small device to our main laptop. Tyler, transfer complete? He nodded, slinging his backpack over his shoulders. All evidence backed up and sent to the FBI. Remote wipe ready. Jessica's eyes widened. The FBI? What have you done? What you should have done, Tyler answered coldly. Expose Craig's entire operation. His real name is Craig Mendoza, wanted in 3 states for fraud and money laundering. I checked the monitors one final time. They're coming up the East Trail now. Time to go. You can't just leave me here. Jessica cried. I cut the restraints, binding her to the chair. I'm not a monster like your boyfriend. There's a trail behind the cabin that leads to the highway. I suggest you run. As we slipped out the back door, Tyler activated the final part of our plan, a remote-controlled mechanism that would wipe our digital footprint and lock down the cabin. We moved silently through the forest, following a route we'd practiced multiple times. Behind us, muffled shouts indicated Craig's men had reached the cabin. What if they catch her? Tyler asked, his voice betraying concern despite everything. She made her choice, I replied, though the words tasted bitter. We need to focus on getting to safety. At the predetermined spot, we found the ATV I'd hidden the previous day. As we drove toward the ranger station where help waited, Tyler held tight to my waist. Do you think it's really over, Dad? He asked, voice barely audible over the engine. I thought about the evidence we'd compiled, the countless hours Tyler had spent tracking transactions and building our case. Yes, son. Thanks to you, it's over. A helicopter waited at the ranger station. My FBI contact mark had come through in a big way. As we lifted off, I saw distant figures emerging from the tree line, too late to stop us. You did good, kiddo, I said, squeezing Tyler's shoulder. Better than anyone could have expected. He nodded solemnly, watching the mountains shrink beneath us. I just wish Mom hadn't been involved. 6 months after our escape from the cabin, life had taken on a new normal. Craig Mendoza and 3 of his associates were in federal custody, facing charges that would keep them imprisoned for decades. Jessica had cut a deal with prosecutors, providing evidence in exchange for a reduced sentence on conspiracy charges. Tyler and I sat in the back of the courtroom during the sentencing hearing, watching as the judge delivered his verdict. 5 years for Jessica, with possibility of parole after 3. Are you okay? I asked Tyler as we left the courthouse. He nodded thoughtfully. I think so. She's still my mom, you know? Even after everything. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. At nearly 13 now, he was growing taller every day. But in moments like this, I could still see the little boy who needed his father's protection. She made terrible choices, I acknowledged. But she did try to warn us in the end. The college fund had been fully restored, with additional restitution paid from Craig's seized assets. We'd moved to a new house across town, one with a state-of-the-art security system that Tyler had personally enhanced. My company had promoted me after the dust settled. Turns out, the skills needed to track international financial criminals were highly marketable in the cybersecurity division. Tyler had become something of a prodigy in the field as well, with his school placing him in advanced computing classes. That evening, as we sat on the deck of our new home grilling steaks, Tyler brought up the letter that had arrived that morning. Are you going to let me visit her? He asked, his voice carefully neutral. I turned the steaks, buying time to choose my words. Jessica had been writing to Tyler from prison, her letters filled with apologies and attempts at explanation. Do you want to? He poked at the salad on his plate. Sometimes. Not because I forgive her, but because I need to understand. I nodded, recognizing the wisdom in his approach. Then yes, when you're ready. We'll go together. Later, as we watched a movie, Tyler rested his head against my shoulder, a rare display of vulnerability these days. We make a good team, don't we, Dad? He said quietly. I thought about everything we'd faced together, the betrayal, the danger, the rebuilding, how his brilliant mind and my steady guidance had seen us through the darkest period of our lives. The best, I confirmed, tousling his hair. Your mom made a lot of mistakes, but she got one thing right. What's that? You. I said simply. And no one can take that away from us. Tyler smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, something that had been rare these past months. Whatever came next, we would face it together, father and son, the unbreakable team forged in the fire of betrayal and tempered by justice.